When the world still worked, you could afford to believe certain comforting lies. You believed danger announced itself, that help was always on its way, and that survival depended on systems, machines humming, supply chains moving, specialists standing by to fix whatever you couldn't. But when those systems collapse, the truth doesn't politely knock. It hits you like a cold wind through a broken window. Survival was never about comfort, prediction, or support. It was always about the raw mechanics underneath everything. Remove electricity, remove order, remove the invisible hands that kept your life stitched together, and you're left with biology and physics, forces that don't wait for you to adjust. Your body burns calories even when you have no food, your temperature drops whether or not you have shelter. A single careless moment invites infection, injury, or exposure, and in that stripped-down state, you begin to understand something most people never confront. Civilization was not protection, it was padding, a soft layer wrapped around a much harder world. In the first hours after collapse, panic usually comes from this realization, not from hunger, not from darkness, but from the sudden nauseating awareness that you were never actually in control. What keeps you alive now isn't your job title, your plans, or your optimism. It's your willingness to face the world as it is, unfiltered, unforgiving, and uninterested in how much you miss the old rules. For most people, a collapse would feel like falling into an alien world, but for the homeless, that world is already home. They live inside the conditions everyone else fears: uncertainty, instability, scarcity, and the constant pressure of staying alert just to make it through the day. While society walks past them assuming they are broken, they've already adapted to a reality where the safety nets are gone. They know what it means to sleep without guarantees. They know how to carry everything that matters within arm's reach. They know how to find warmth without a thermostat, water without a tap, food without a kitchen. These aren't symbolic struggles. They are daily mechanics of staying alive in a world that offers nothing freely. The collapse strips most people of their illusions, but the homeless never had those illusions to begin with. Their world is made of pavement, cold metal benches, unpredictable strangers, and choices no one wants to make, but must. When society erases them, they are forced to pay attention to things others overlook: patterns of people, shifts in neighborhoods, the moods of crowds, the quiet signs of danger in places others consider ordinary. This familiarity with deprivation is not romantic. It's not noble suffering. It is adaptation, raw, direct, and honed through repetition. And when the larger world begins to resemble the margins, those who already lived there carry knowledge most people didn't even know existed. When society still functioned, you relied on institutions for connection: phones, networks, the schedules, and systems designed to keep information flowing. But those systems collapse quickly, and when they do, most people find themselves isolated, unsure who to trust, and blind to what's happening beyond their immediate sight. The homeless survive without any of that. Their networks are quiet, improvised, and built on observation rather than infrastructure. They know who can be approached and who must be avoided. They know the unspoken rules of shared spaces, the rhythms of patrols, the places where kindness is real and the places where it's a trap. Their communication is subtle, exchanged through routines, gestures, or simply being present in the right place at the right time. Outside observers rarely notice these networks. They assume every homeless person is alone, cut off from the world. But beneath that assumption lies a complex web of mutual awareness. It isn't friendship in the traditional sense, it's survival-level cooperation. Someone might warn about a dangerous individual moving through the area. Someone else might share food or point out a spot that stays dry during the rain. A single conversation can mean the difference between a safe night and a disastrous one. In a post-collapse reality, this sensitivity to human dynamics becomes priceless. Most people will be overwhelmed by the silence of disconnected systems, unsure how to read others or what signals matter. But the homeless have been navigating a world without structure for years. They understand that information doesn't need wires or screens. It needs attention, trust built slowly, and the courage to act on what you observe. Their networks are fragile, yes, but they are real. And when the world breaks, fragility is still far more than nothing. Most people move through life half asleep, protected by routine. They don't notice the subtle shifts in a stranger's posture, the quiet tension before conflict, or the way danger often arrives disguised as normalcy. But the homeless live in a constant state of alertness, not because they want to, but because the world around them demands it. Every night carries risk, every sound has meaning. Every decision has consequences that unfold immediately, not someday. This awareness isn't paranoia, it's survival psychology. Their minds stay calibrated to threats the way others stay calibrated to schedules. And they sleep lightly, waking at the smallest disturbance. They scan for exits automatically. Their attention sweeps through a space the moment they enter it, mapping vulnerabilities, hiding spots, movement patterns. It's a quiet, exhausting vigilance, but it sharpens them in ways civilization never teaches. When society collapses, this psychological readiness becomes a profound advantage. While others freeze in shock, unable to process the sudden loss of structure, those who have already lived in uncertainty don't waste time. They assess, they adapt, they respond without waiting for permission or clarity. Their instincts are already tuned to a world without guarantees, and that tuning becomes a lifeline. This isn't the dramatic heroic awareness movies portray. It's subtle, more like a muscle memory of danger, a lifetime of noticing what others ignore, and in the chaos of a collapsing world, noticing first often means surviving. Long before collapse became a threat for anyone else, the homeless were already practicing the core mechanics of survival: shelter, warmth, navigation, and improvisation, without tools, without resources, and without second chances. These skills didn't come from books or training courses, they came from necessity, from nights when the temperature dropped too quickly or when a single mistake meant starting over with nothing. They learned to read a city the way a tracker reads a forest. They know which overhangs stay dry during heavy rain, which vents release enough warm air to keep a body from going numb, and which alleys become dangerous once the streetlights go out. Their terrain memory is not abstract. It's lived into their bones. Every route has a purpose, every corner carries history, and every safe spot was discovered through trial, error, and sometimes pain. Improvisation becomes a kind of craftsmanship. A torn tarp becomes a roof, a discarded jacket becomes insulation, a broken shopping cart becomes a mobile supply rack. Nothing is useless until it has been tested in every way possible. While most people panic when tools disappear, the homeless already know how to build with scraps, repair with instinct, and survive with what others throw away. Fire, warmth, and shelter, things taken for granted in civilization, become precise calculations. They know how to block wind with found materials, how to trap warmth in tight spaces, how to recognize when a shelter is too exposed or too visible. And they learn quickly that the best shelter is one that keeps you alive without drawing attention. When society finally collapses into scarcity, these tactical skills, developed through hardship, repetition, and necessity, stop looking like signs of misfortune. They become signs of mastery, the kind of mastery people will wish they had learned long before the lights went out. There is a kind of resilience that never announces itself. It doesn't come with speeches, slogans, or proud declarations. It grows quietly in people who have had to rebuild themselves again and again with nothing but their own hands, their own breath, and their own will. The homeless know this resilience intimately. It's not the loud strength celebrated in movies, it's the quiet endurance that emerges when a person stands up after life has taken everything from them except the ability to keep moving. When you survive with nothing, you learn exactly what cannot be taken from you. You learn that comfort is temporary, but determination is not. You learn that identity doesn't come from possessions, titles, or routines. It comes from your ability to push through hunger, cold, fear, and humiliation without letting those things turn you cruel or hollow. That kind of inner stability doesn't vanish in a collapse. It only grows sharper. Most people imagine they would fall apart if stripped of every certainty they rely on, and many will, but the homeless have already lived through that total erasure, losing homes, safety, networks, and the illusion of being protected. They had to face the hardest question long before the rest of the world. Who am I when nothing is secure? The answer they discovered wasn't poetic, it was practical. They are survivors not because they choose heroism, but because survival is the only option they ever had. This resilience isn't obvious at first glance. It's in the way they keep walking despite exhaustion, in the way they rebuild a routine from ashes, in the way they accept harsh reality without giving up on the next hour, the next breath, the next small chance to make things better. It's the kind of strength that grows quietly in the spaces where no one is watching. And when the world finally breaks and everyone is forced to confront life without structure, this quiet resilience becomes something the rest of humanity will envy. A strength formed not from privilege, but from surviving the truth of the world as it is. Society has always looked at the homeless through the wrong lens. People see weakness where there's actually adaptation. They see failure where there is discipline. They see disorder where there is strategy, because it's easier to believe that homelessness is a flaw than to admit it reveals something uncomfortable. These individuals understand realities most people spend their entire lives avoiding. For decades, the world dismissed their resilience as chaos. Their survival skills were labeled as signs of being lost, not signs of being capable. Their ability to navigate danger without support was treated as evidence of instability rather than proof of instinctive competence. The public looked away, convinced that their own lives were fortified by stability, technology, and comfort, convinced that such resilience would never be needed. But when collapse strips civilization down to its raw frame, something shifts. Suddenly, the people once ignored become mirrors, reflecting what the rest of the world lacks. The instincts that kept them alive, awareness, adaptability, endurance, improvisation, no longer look like unfortunate habits. They look like the blueprint for surviving a reality without structure, and in that moment, society is forced to confront a truth it avoided for too long. The ones who lived on the margins were never broken. They were prepared. They were training in plain sight, shaped by the very conditions everyone else now struggles to comprehend. The difference is simple. Most people lived in a world that protected them. The homeless lived in a world that sharpened them. If collapse teaches anything, it's that the value of a person's strength isn't defined by where they fit in society, but by what they can endure when society falls apart. And on that scale, the world has underestimated a great many people for far too long. There comes a moment in every collapse when the old rules finally lose their power. The systems people trusted stop functioning, the routines they depended on fall apart, and the identities they once wore so confidently no longer mean anything. In that moment, survival isn't about who you used to be, it's about what you can do right now with what you have under pressure you never imagined facing. This is where the overlooked skills of the homeless stop being invisible and start becoming essential. Their ability to read danger in silence becomes a strategy. Their improvisation with scraps becomes engineering. Their instinct for staying unnoticed becomes tactical wisdom. Their endurance, built from nights spent fighting cold, hunger, and vulnerability, becomes the benchmark others desperately try to reach. While society grapples with the shock of losing comfort, the homeless navigate the chaos with a familiarity others lack. They understand how to move without drawing attention, how to conserve energy, how to build a shelter from debris that looks useless to everyone else. They know which places offer warmth, which places attract trouble, and which places become safe only at certain hours. These patterns, invisible to most, create a map for survival when maps no longer matter, and slowly the world begins to learn from them. People who once pitied or ignored them find themselves watching how they move, how they choose routes, how they assess a space in seconds. The skills developed through years of forced adaptation become the foundation for a new kind of knowledge, one that values awareness over tools, resilience over comfort, and ingenuity over resources. In the end, the greatest shift is not in technique, but in perception. The world stops seeing homelessness as a symbol of failure and starts seeing it as a harsh, unforgiving form of training, one that forged skills no one expected to need, but everyone suddenly depends on. And when the dust settles, these once overlooked survivalists stand not at the edges of society, but at the center of what humanity must learn to endure its darkest era. When the world finally quiets after the chaos, a strange clarity settles over everything. You begin to see that survival was never just about tactics or tools, It was about the people who learned to endure long before anyone else realized endurance would be required. The homeless lived a truth the rest of society didn't want to acknowledge, that strength doesn't come from comfort, it comes from confronting the world without guarantees. In the aftermath of collapse, their resilience becomes a lesson for everyone, not a romantic story, not a myth of heroism, just a reminder that human beings are capable of far more than they ever believed when stripped down to their core. The world begins rebuilding from the rawest version of itself, guided not by the systems that once failed, but by the instincts that never lied. If there is one message left to carry forward, it's this. The people society overlooked were never weak. They were adapting to a harder version of reality, a version the rest of the world eventually had no choice but to face. Their struggle, their endurance, and their quiet strength become part of the blueprint for starting again. If this story resonated with you, please share your sense of strength in the comments, and let's spread this quiet pride to the world.